y'all, Jay here from Jay's Decor and Restore, and it's project day. Today I'm going to be working on making a pet bed. You've seen me make one before. A few months back I did one for a customer who had placed a custom order for a large dog. This time though, I'm going to be making it from an end table as opposed to the pallet that I used the last time. And we've seen, we may even have some old end tables that we don't know what to do with. You might want to donate them to Goodwill. But if you have a pet, a dog or a cat, and it could be a really good piece of furniture to use for that. And they are so cute. So I'm going to go ahead and get set up in the garage and we're going to get started. All right, so this is the end table that I'm going to be using for a pet bed. I actually bought this on OfferUp for like $15. And it's got some really pretty legs to it. It's pretty scratched up at the top, but it doesn't matter because that's going to be actually the bottom of the bed. And the first thing I'm going to do is going to clean it off with a vinegar and water solution. You can see it's really dusty and dirty. And then I'm going to prime it with my Kilt's Bond Adhesion Primer. So I'm not going to videotape that because you've seen me prime before and there's not a whole lot to it. But when I get ready to start painting it, I will come back and show you how we're going to turn this into a beautiful pet bed. Okay, so I'm going to be using any Sloan chalk paint that I actually used on my craft table because I have quite a bit left and I really like the color. So I'm just going to stop talking now because I'm going to fast forward through this part. So here you can see that I painted a little bit on the inside. I primed it because I will be painting up until that line there. This is where I'm going to put the board where the dog will rest, and it'll cover up all of the hardware and all of that so that it's nice and pretty. So that is the reason why I only painted that part. So now I'm going to get ready to paint the legs, and I'm going to paint them a pretty brown chalk color that I actually used on my desk. Again, I had extra paint. And the thing with chalk paint, especially when it's not a flat surface, is you want to make sure you don't add too much paint because it can drip. And with drips, what happens with chalk paint is it dries and then it clumps, and then you have to sand it off. So use a very modest amount of paint the first time you paint on something like this. So I bought these little unfinished wood pieces at Hobby Lobby. I got a 40% coupon or something like that. So they were $4 on whatever, 40% off of $4. I can't do math right now. But anyway, I'm going to be painting these the same color as the base because they're going to go on the top of the legs to create that 4-poster bed look. So while I'm waiting for everything else to dry, I started painting these already. So I'll come back as we continue. So I wanted to give you a sneak peek as to how it's coming along and how the two colors just really work well together. I did want to add a little bit of fun to it, so I'm going to add some dots to the base using the same brown chalk paint that I used for the legs. I'm going to get my camera set up so I can get started doing that. All right, so I have 2 plates here, and I poured some paint into one. I already did one side because I wanted to kind of develop a pattern, and then I have another one where I will kind of just dot my little 2-sided sponge. So we've got one that side that's bigger and one that's smaller, and so I'm kind of going to have just a pattern of 2 different sizes of dots. So it's just really simple, and it's really your preference. You can leave it if you don't want to do this, but I just kind of wanted to, give it a little bit of contrasting color on this particular chalk plate here, so that it kind of ties in the legs. So I'm just going to start with the bigger side and just dab it on my plate. Need a little bit more paint. Dab it on my plate. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to put too much paint, but you also want to make sure you get a good coverage. So I'm just going to start here in the corner, and I'm just going to kind of rotate it a little bit. And see, it still didn't have enough paint on there, so I may need a little bit more paint, but I don't want to put too much because I don't want it to drip. And I'm just going to rotate it there, and better dot there. And then I'm going to take my skinnier side, and this way I kind of develop the pattern as I'm going. And put one right down here, and rotate it a little bit. And just needs a little bit in the center. So, and I just need to tab that. There we go. Perfect dot. I'm just going to fast forward through this part, but there is another technique you can use for the larger dots if you can't fill the middle part, is use your smaller part of your sponge for the center of the larger dots to fill in the areas that don't have paint. Okay, so I wanted you to see the almost finished product. As you can see here, I added a cute little paw, and I have a picture that I attached. It's a paw that I actually cut from my Cricut machine, and I actually used the inside of the paw for a different project. And I don't believe in throwing things away because I figure, well, one day maybe I'll use it for something else, and I think it's a perfect fit here. And I ended up going with these knobs instead, because once I added the other knobs that I had originally showed you, I really didn't like the way it looked. So I bought these pretty knobs that I actually used on my craft table. They were on clearance, so I got those for dirt cheap at Hobby Lobby. And then here are the polka dots, and I think that turned out really, really well. So it's all kind of tying in together. So now what I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you how we're going to add the top, so that the top of the bed here, so that I can add the pillow. So I'm going to go ahead and position my camera so you can see that, and then show you how we're going to make it so it's nice and sturdy for when the dog comes in, it doesn't fold in. I meant to add in that I created these vinyl letters on my Cricut machine to add to the front of the bed as well. The board I'm going to be using. Sorry, it's a little dark in here. I don't want to open the garage today because it is super humid and the mosquitoes are like crazy. So I tried to get all my lights on here, and you'll see some of my shadows here. But anyway, this is the board that I am using. It's a really thin board. You can see that from here. Not the best angle, but and I had actually cut this a long time ago when I was going to make this bed. It's been months that's been sitting here, so I used a jigsaw to cut these little edges here, and just real simple cut that would fit inside the bed. So I'll show you how that's going to fit in a minute. So I do want to show you something here. So I am putting the board into the bed, but I wanted to show you that it is going to have a bend to it if you don't put something underneath the board to hold it in place. And eventually, while the bed is made for a small dog, it would eventually bend too much and then lose its shape. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to take some scrap woods that I have. And as much as I used to hate when my husband kept scrap wood, I'm now one of those people that keeps pretty much everything. And I glued those pieces together so that I could use it underneath the board, and it'll hold it in place. And I'll show you how I'm going to do that in a minute. But I did glue these with Gorilla Glue overnight just so that to make sure that they're nice and sturdy and they're not going to come apart. And you want to make sure, though, that when you're using the scrap wood that it's tall enough so that the board will sit at the level that it should, right above the hardware. So I'll come back in a minute and show you how I'm going to do that. All right, so I have 4 of these that I showed you that I glued, and they're going to go in like this. One on this side, one on this side, one on the front, put it this way, and one on the back. Okay? And you remember I only painted up to a certain area, and you're going to see why. So now that I have those in, and I'm going to glue them in, but I wanted to show you how it's going to look. And you put this board on top. And now you see how nice and sturdy it is. It's not bowing. So that is what is going to keep it from, keep it intact when the dog sits. Now, this bed is made for smaller dogs. So it's not going to be a lot of weight, but still, you want it to last, especially if you're doing all this work. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that in, and then I'm going to glue the this board to the scraps that I put in here. If I can get it out here now. So I'm going to glue the bottom of this to all of these so it stays in place. So that's pretty much how that works. So in order to keep this video shorter, I am going to have a separate video on how to make the dog pillow, and I will post that in the following week. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to go inside now where it's nice and air conditioned and start working on that. See you next time.